for who we have joining us, Aimee Raupp. Briefly, let me give you a quick intro on myself and Oova. For those of you who may not know, my name is Aimee and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Oova. What we've done is developed an at-home test that monitors multiple hormones through urine. It measures LH and progesterone quantitatively, and if you're working with an Oova provider, they actually get your quantitative hormone measurements in real time so they can do remote hormone monitoring. And Aimee is one of our most active and I want to say loyal clients that is actively using Oova. So we love working with her patients. But just how it works is it's a urine-based test. When you get your kit, it comes with 15 strips. It works alongside a smartphone app. And basically what you will do is the app will instruct you on what days to use Oova. And on a testing day, you basically provide a urine sample on Oova and then wait 10 minutes. And I think I'm gonna ask everyone to mute real quick. And then basically you scan it with your phone and we do all the analytics for you in real time. So you get the results within seconds. And then as I mentioned, if you're working with an Oova provider, they get your results in real time as well. One of our bigger goals with Oova is to really empower women to understand more about their health. And one way for us to do that is to host events like this so you can learn about all the different ways that you can treat your body and really optimize your wellness. And I think Aimee's perfect for kind of highlighting all of those aspects. So before we really kick off, Aimee, I'd love to do a quick intro on who you are, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
You're going to do it? Yeah, you're going to do it.
I'm
going
to
listen.
Okay.
I'll listen. Or do you want me to do it?
Whatever you prefer. I mean, your bio is pretty. All right.
Yeah, you could read the bio, sure.
So Aimee is a renowned women's health and fertility expert, celebrity acupuncturist, and coach, and the best-selling author of the books Chill Out and Get Healthy, Yes, You Can Get Pregnant, and Body Belief. Her latest book, The Egg Quality Diet, a clinically proven 100-day fertility diet to balance hormones, reduce inflammation, improve egg quality, and optimize your ability to get and stay pregnant, will be released in June 2021. That's coming up real fast.
Yeah, like tomorrow, it feels like.
Aimee works virtually with clients all over the world, as well. She is a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist in private practice in New York and Connecticut. She holds a Master of Science degree in traditional Oriental medicine from the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine and a bachelor's degree in biology from Rutgers University. She is also the founder of the Aimee Raupp beauty line of handcrafted organic skincare products that are optimized for hormone harmony. She has appeared on The View and has been featured in Glamour, Allure, Well and Good, Mind Body Green, Goop, Shape, and many podcasts, including Wellness Mama, Melissa Ambrosini, and Dr. Frank Lipman. Aimee has received endorsements from Deepak Chopra, Hannah Bronfman, Ariana Huffington, and Gabrielle Bernstein for her work in helping thousands of women to improve their fertility, celebrate their beauty, and reconnect to the presence of their optimal health. So I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. I'm excited for your talk, but I'll pass the baton over to you.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks, Aimee. And thanks for having me and for all of you for joining. I would also say, in addition to that bio, I'm also like a woman like you guys. I'm in the throes of trying to make a second baby after a miscarriage about a year and change ago. And I'm actively using Oova myself. So when we talk about it tonight, I want you to also understand that too, from like my clinical perspective of almost 20 years of clinical experience, that I also, as a human, as a woman, trying to conceive, that I use Oova as well, because I find it to be just so helpful and useful. So, and I share that too, just so you guys know, I'm a real girl, real human, just like the rest of you. And it just happened to be in this space. And I've written, like Aimee said, several books. I think the most popular one that everybody in this forum wants to know about is Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. And then the one that is releasing in about 2 weeks called The Egg Quality Diet. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. But tonight we're going to talk about acupuncture, cycle tracking, and what you can learn from your cycle, and then how that all pertains to your fertility. So briefly, I don't know if any of you have tried acupuncture, on your journey to conception, or if there's clinicians in here as well. As you kind of sent this out to the public, right, Aimee? So we have a host of, because I feel like one question in the sounded like a clinician more than a woman trying to conceive, which is great, awesome. I'm all about learning as much as we possibly can. I was listening to webinars this morning of other practitioners, so it's just how I do it too. So acupuncture, that's where I started my clinical practice. So again, I've been practicing for 17 years. I have a couple clinics in New York City, Nyack, New York, and then now up in Westport, Connecticut, and Darien, Connecticut, and been using acupuncture for a very long time to help. I mainly treat women, optimize their health, their fertility. One thing that I always say in all of my teachings is acupuncture, fertility is an extension of health, right? So, and acupuncture also to keep in mind is one facet of a greater, branch of medicine called traditional Chinese medicine, which includes acupuncture, Chinese herbs, diet, lifestyle, movement, mindset, all of that comes into play. And so how I approach and my team now I have a team of fertility coaches, I have a team of fertility acupuncturists, how we approach each and every case is really from that traditional Chinese medicine lens. And then understanding, functional medicine and supplements and things of that nature. But basically speaking, I always see acupuncture as a means to aggravate the body to function better. And so when it comes to fertility, I think, there's a lot of research that shows all sorts of things. I mean, to summarize the research, and I can also get, if anybody wants citations, I wasn't organized to get a pretty slideshow for you guys together, but I can get you citations and things of that nature if anybody wants information on the research. But the data, to summarize the data of what it shows, and this is, consistent Western medical data research that has come through over the past, I'd say 2 decades for acupuncture, it consistently shows it lowers stress hormones and thereby regulates follicle stimulating hormone. It improves blood flow to the pelvic area, ovaries, and uterus. And there's not a lot of data there yet, but by means of improving blood flow to the pelvic area, ovaries, and uterus, we could, I think, further extrapolate and say that thereby we would improve AMH as well, because AMH is a function of ovarian health. And if we improve blood flow, and a lecture I was listening to this morning was all about, if we want to optimize fertility, there's really 3 main areas we need to address. One is the brain, how the brain communicates with the ovaries. 2, though, is the microcirculation to the ovaries and the reproductive organs. And so to me, that says acupuncture, 100% acupuncture, things like Mayan abdominal massage, castor oil packs, cupping, gua sha, all of those things, dry brushing. And when we do these types of techniques, and obviously I'm an acupuncturist, so I tend to use acupuncture techniques, we do see clinically across the board, we see hormone levels balance. And so FSH and AMH can definitely be improved, I think, just by acupuncture alone. But then if you add in all the other layers like diet and supplements and lifestyle, you'll definitely see shifts. We see, again, science has shown that acupuncture reduces contractions of the uterus. It regulates the immune system. I think that's really important for anybody who's dealt with recurrent pregnancy losses, things like endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is kind of the gamut of every woman trying to conceive. The immune system plays a significant role in allowing your body to basically host a pregnancy. And so we know acupuncture can help regulate the immune system, thereby allowing you to get and stay pregnant, because your immune system then doesn't reject the pregnancy. Increases uterine receptivity. And then when it comes to fertility treatments, there's been a handful of research studies as well showing acupuncture pre and post IVF actually, some studies say upwards of 40% improved success rates, and others say about 30%. So I always say upwards of 30% improved success rates. And that's live birth success rate too. That's not just pregnancy rates. So that's, I think, very significant. And there's newer research now that's showing not just pre and post, but if you start a regimen of acupuncture about 3 months before you do your fertility treatments, that's where you see the most benefit. So we're seeing that the the longer term use, and I think in that window of follicular genesis, which is what I want to get into next, because that's where we get into like cycle tracking. And but if you see using acupuncture in that window, you will see, of course, if you're tracking your cycle, we always see cycles kind of even out, if you will. We see what I like to say, more efficient ovulations, and then thereby, I think, a stronger luteal phase, which we're going to get into when we talk more about Oova and the measurements. But seeing that acupuncture starting about 3 months out, which the process of follicular genesis is basically the maturation of the follicle that you're going to ovulate this month, right? And so that process takes about 100 days. And that's, so this whole, and I talk about this a lot in Yes, You Can Get Pregnant, but also in the upcoming book, The Egg Quality Diet, this whole theory that, okay, the things that are, I think that are fact and undeniable is, yes, we do lose follicles every single month. Yes, we do lose follicles as we age. Yes, eventually we will run out of eggs. Fertility does seem to decline with age, but none of it is nearly as significant as I think we are made to believe. And so I think the general statistic of by over the age of 35, 1 in 3 women will not get pregnant or have a hard time getting pregnant. So it's about a 60% success rate in women trying to conceive naturally over the age of 35. There's actually study after study that doesn't support that. It shows much higher numbers, that about 80 to 90% of women 30, 35, even 40 are actually getting pregnant if they have sex at the right time, which is where Oova comes in to really help nail ovulation. So, but for you all to realize too that, and I think this is really why I got into this work, and I know Aimee's rooted in this as well, this level of empowerment, because what I started to hear time after time in the clinic was women feeling completely out of control and disempowered. All my eggs are bad. There's no hope left. I'm in premature ovarian failure. My FSH is this, my AMH is that. There's nothing I can do. And I do think Western medicine is amazing and can really help us get to where we need to get. For a lot of women, assisted reproductive techniques are phenomenal, but there's so much we can do to best prepare ourselves for the best outcomes, whether we're trying naturally or using assisted reproductive techniques. And, diet, lifestyle, we know now from all the research, there's a lot of research that's come out in the last couple of years about what we can do to improve egg quality, uterine receptivity, ovarian health, hormone levels, and actually, conceive even against the odds, if you will. And I see it time and time again with all of my clients, and and we're in the thousands at this point. It's not like I'm dealing with 20 or 100 clients. Like, we're literally in the thousands and have a very high success rate. Women do all sorts of treatments, but and in the past too. So I wanted to show you guys one thing. It's not going to be a very pretty screen share. Aimee, I hope that doesn't bother you, but a picture of what your hormones look like as you go through your cycle, which you guys might know this, but let's see. Again, not pretty, because I just have a little much on my plate with this book coming out. So this is what a normal menstrual cycle looks like, right? So this is I actually stole this from the lecture I was listening to this morning, because I have a picture of my book, but again, just didn't have my act together enough to get it to you guys. You're not going to see the picture of my book right now because I'm sharing my screen, so never mind. But you can see here the orange. So this is the beginning of your cycle, right? This is like you're menstruating right here. So estrogen is meant to rise. One thing I learned today, and I was listening to Carrie Jones give a lecture at the Integrated Fertility Symposium. You know Carrie Jones from the Dutch, right? Aimee, do you know her? And she said something that I never had heard before, that your estrogen actually needs to hit at least 200. What's the, I have it right here.
Probably picograms per mil.
Yeah, is it PG or NG?
It's probably picograms because
Yeah,
200
picograms
really
per
big.
milliliter, in order for LH to actually surge to what it needs to be. I never knew that. Like, I never knew estrogen had to actually really peak as well. And then that triggers LH to actually peak. But of course I know it on the chart, and this chart obviously like shows that, if you will, like estrogen needs to hit this peak, then LH will come in and surge. And then what's left over, which, so basically you're spending, prior to this, you guys can see my cursor, 100 days, 3 months prior to this, where you're constantly recruiting follicles, and your body is selecting the one and only that's going to become this like dominant, hopefully future baby, if you're trying to conceive. And so there's all this time before where you can, we know now too that, like, and I did a conversation a couple weeks ago with Dr. Murray, who Aimee recently met as well, and he heads Rejuvenating Fertility Center, but he said, we're actually born, all our eggs are good. The nucleus, all the chromosomes are in every single egg, no matter how old you are, any eggs left in your ovaries, they're actually all good. You got all the chromosomes you need, and the sperm has all the nucleus is intact. It's got everything it needs. What impacts egg quality is actually this extracellular fluid that surrounds the egg. So the egg lives in, we call it the egg house, which is the follicle. And then there's the egg. I actually wish I had a picture, but I do. Let me, if I stop sharing for a second. I have a pretty picture somewhere. The egg lives in that pretty house, and I know it's in here. I drew it myself. Let's see. All right. I'm not going to waste time looking for it. Sorry, guys. Oh man, I really want to show you, but okay. So the egg lives in this pretty house that is the follicle. And then inside is the nucleus. That egg is the nucleus, has all the chromosomes it needs. It's a perfectly healthy egg. So all your eggs are good. I want all you guys to take that in. All your eggs are actually good. What impacts egg quality is this extracellular fluid that surrounds it. So it's this big, if you will, follicle, right? And inside is this little egg. And then this fluid is all kind of like cellular debris. Think of it as like environmental toxins, crappy food choices, stress hormones, all the things that can go in and impact that egg quality. And so the coolest thing, though, I think on the planet, and this is what I really, I mean, I love Oova, but like one of the things I feel like I get from Oova as a clinician is when I see that healthy progesterone, it really translates to me that this was a healthy egg house. The follicle was actually really healthy, because what makes a progesterone, so the egg has to rupture, that estrogen has to spike, the LH then spikes, that causes the egg to rupture the follicle to rupture. Out comes the egg, hopefully in 4 to 24 hours gets fertilized with juicy, healthy sperm. And this was another thing I learned today too. The unhealthier the egg, the shorter the fertilization period. Unhealthy eggs will not live longer than 4 hours. Healthy eggs have 24 hours to get implanted or fertilized. Another fascinating thing. So you need sperm up there ready and waiting. And that's another thing where the Oova, it's so helpful. And so what's left, so that follicle, the egg house, then basically collapses upon itself and becomes a whole new structure, if you will, called the Corpus Luteum, which secretes progesterone. And so when girls ask me, and I get this question all the time, and Aimee probably does too, and all you guys, my progesterone's low. Can I take progesterone to like fix the problem? It's like, okay, sure. But that's a Band-Aid, guys. Like, the progesterone's low because the follicle house is crappy. We got to make that follicle house better. And that's all about your lifestyle, your diet, your mindset, your stress levels, how much you're sleeping in complete darkness, waking up with the sun. Like, there's so many things that you can do to improve the quality of that follicle house, which improves the quality of that fluid, which then in fact will improve the quality of that egg. And guess what? You're going to get healthy progesterone from that corpus luteum. So to understand that it all comes from this very same structure, that it's a highly coordinated system. It's fascinating, right? But that all these things come into play, and then you get this healthy, hopefully you get this healthy, juicy progesterone, which again is, so the Oova, as Aimee described, and you guys probably know because you're following Oova, so you found this webinar, but Oova doesn't just track your LH, it shows you what your progesterone is going to look like, or does look like in that luteal phase, which for me as a clinician is very, very telling. So is, I think, the level of the LH surge. But we've also, and Aimee and I discussed this, we also see women with not great LH surges and not great progesterone actually get pregnant too. So there are these anomalies. However, I do think the efficiency of that spike, if you will, to me tells a lot, where it's like sometimes there's this creepy crawly in the cycle tracking. So I wanted to touch base on, so back in the day, I used to recommend for cycle tracking, of course, basal body temperature tracking, just like everyone else did. And that's all. It's efficient. I think it's helpful. I think it can be useful information. I started stepping away from it, over 10 years ago, I would say, because I saw a couple of things. One is that there's way too many variables when it comes to temperatures. And, like one woman, I was like, what's going on? Your follicular phase temperatures are so high. Like, oh, my dog sleeps with me. Okay. Well, there, like things like that. I'm like, okay, this isn't, or I wake up at 3 a.m. every night to pee, or every morning to pee, but then I get up at 6. Well, it's not enough time to actually get an accurate BBT. So there was all these variables. And then the other thing I saw, which some of you guys can probably relate to, is, and I say this very lovingly, and as a woman who is, I think in there with you, it's insanity making. It's like, it makes you insane. Every day, the first thing you think about is, what's my temperature? What does it indicate? And I think you become a little less reliant on your body and all these things. And then the at-home OPKs, ovulation predictor kits, I think can be useful for some women, but as Aimee discovered, and why we now have a company called Oova, is they don't work for everybody. And they don't work for a lot of women. And they're also insanity making, because it's like, did I not ovulate? Is the second line darker? Is it, what is it? Did you miss the window altogether? So having something like Oova come in was, I think, a bit of a game changer, because now we can not just see whether or not you ovulated, but how efficient is that LH surge, and then also what your progesterone comes in. And so for me as a clinician, again, I get to backtrack. And, the truth is too, and I have this in my notes, is everything still comes down to, oh, I just lost my notes. Sorry, guys. I have a new laptop that I am so lazy about actually spending time learning how to use, that I keep doing this to myself every time I have a session. Okay. So you guys can still see me, right? Let me just do this. Okay, got it. So it's, when it comes to fertility, right? Of course, like I love using acupuncture for improving ovarian blood flow, helping with lymphatic drainage, all that. Just, in Chinese medicine, we say anything, any disease, any disharmony is because energy is stuck somewhere, and acupuncture really helps flow things. So, and we know acupuncture from a scientific perspective has been shown to help women trying to conceive. And then of course I layer in diet, lifestyle, all those things. But the things that we need to address if we want to improve fertility is we really have to improve that uterine blood flow, improve the ovarian blood flow. We got to make sure the brain and the ovaries are communicating effectively, and they typically don't communicate effectively under stress or duress. And I know that's a very vague statement, but for you to understand, like if you, are in a constant state of fight or flight, the body will just not prioritize pregnancy. It just doesn't think it has the bandwidth for it. So for you to understand, like how often is your stress like firing, and that really does impact the brain, the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis. It really impacts the way the brain communicates with the ovaries, and the ovaries, the body wants to feel safe. So I think physically, mentally, emotionally, safety is what creates a really fertile body. And of course, there are plenty of women in unsafe conditions and they get pregnant. So I know many of you would be like, wait a second, I've heard all these stories. It is true. And what I lovingly would say though is like, okay, but they're not here in this conversation. And so I think it does come down to some genetics, and I think it comes down to possibly age and all these other, there's many variables that would come into play in those situations where these women not treating themselves ideally or not living in ideal situations still conceive. But if you're having challenges, I think it is something that you need to look under the rock, if you will, and like be your own detective and just, okay, how often do I feel like I'm just like darting from meeting to meeting or running from things to things or feeling discombobulated or feeling threatened, even if it's like a relationship, not a physical threat, but like a work relationship where someone stresses you out, right? To think about that, like that impacts how your brain communicates with your ovaries. So does sleeping in complete darkness. It's really, really, really important that you limit your screen time before bed. You wear blue light glasses. I think as the sun sets, that you start to set yourself if you're going to be on screens. Sleeping in complete darkness, spending time in direct sunshine in the morning, so important to regulate that HPO axis. So the brain communicating with the ovaries. Focusing on folliculogenesis, so really committing to some kind of protocol. You could use my egg quality diet that comes out in a couple of weeks, which is a good protocol for 100 days to really impact folliculogenesis. And then, understanding too that I think so importantly that you have power here, and you can impact so many of these things. So it's like hope, I think maybe is a good way to say it too, or just feeling a sense of like, there's some things I can do here to help myself. I think those are like the four most important things if we were to look at it from a perspective of what you can do to naturally improve your fertility. And then even if you're working with assisted reproductive technique or you're trying at home and using the Oova, I also think you can definitely, we have like conversations that we're having now of even women using Oova in place of going in for all the blood work, when they are doing assisted reproductive techniques, which I think is such a nice thing because now that I've been in the mix a bit, I understand like, I'm only going in weekly for blood work and trying naturally, but I can only imagine that if going in like 4 times a week, 3 times a week, getting scanned every time. So thinking about like that you could use at home kits to help you understand your hormone levels and report back to the doctor, or in real time, your doctor is seeing that. So I think talk about like that, the brain ovarian communication, we're reducing that stress level tremendously as well. And then obviously we layer in acupuncture. I think that could be really helpful for all of you. So I know we want to have some time for a Q&A, and there were some questions in here. Aimee, do you want to move to that so we stay kind of on time?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat box. We did get a few questions ahead of time, so I'd love to
I have those. I can
those.
pull those up if you want. I have them right here.
Sure. I'll read them to you so that we can have kind of a discussion about it too. Would you recommend mild IVF if you are over the age of 40?
I mean, sorry, it really depends on, I think, a lot of things. This is where, I don't really care about numbers, FSH, AMH, things like that. But this is where they do matter and gives us an idea of how you're going to respond. So if your FSH is, under a 10 and your AMH is decent, like, close to a 1, That's pretty good actually for 40, not decent. That's pretty good. So 0.5, somewhere in there, your antral follicle count, that's what I care about the most. If that's like 4 or higher, 6, I think doing an IVF could be beneficial. So mini versus regular, I think really just depends on the clinic, your comfort level with the doctor's ability and willingness to change the protocol mid-cycle if things aren't going right. I do think too, so it kind of depends. Like if you came to me and you had good numbers and all that, like I have one girl, she's 45. I mean, she crushes it in IVF. She gets like 12 eggs. It's insane. Her reserve is phenomenal for her age, but she's not getting any PGS normals, right? They're growing it out to blastocysts. They're not coming back normal. So in that case, now I'm having her do a mini IVF because I do think that the meds, because she has such a good reserve, her doctors are treating her like she's a woman 10 years younger than she is. And I think it's compromising quality. So I guess the long answer is, it really depends on you and your body, how you manage meds. And I also would like call it on you of like, this is your body, your time, your money, your resources, what feels right to you. Like, I think the fact that you're even asking the question, I think you're leaning towards mini IVF. And so that to me would be like, that's where you go. The issue with the mini IVF is it might take a couple retrievals to get the amount of eggs you want to then go and start transferring. It really just depends. It's a case-by-case basis. I think less meds there's no real data on this yet, but my hunch is less meds are better for egg quality.
Great. Another question is focused on BBT.
Yeah.
My BBT is higher than average during the follicular phase, and I've been told it can mean there's too much heat in my body at this time. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so this is like where we would use BBT in Chinese medicine. Absolutely. So it could be. So the follicular phase is all about estrogen. The luteal phase all about progesterone, right? And then we have LH in the middle. The estrogen, we don't have estrogen in Chinese medicine, we have yin. And we say in Chinese medicine, you need to have like an overflowing of yin, which is fluids and like your cervical mucus, your menstrual blood, like a good, healthy, we want good, healthy cervical mucus. We want fresh, brightly colored menstrual blood and a good amount of it, bleeding for like 3 to 4 days, changing a pad every 5 or 6 hours or I'm sorry, every 3 or 4 hours, a couple times in those first 2 days. So I do a whole picture and I look and I say, okay, her period's light. She's got vaginal dryness. She's not seeing cervical mucus. Her BBT is a little high in the follicular phase. Yeah, she's got what we would call Yin Deficiency Heat. And then, so the goal there is, and you go in and you clear heat with like, some usually like seeds, oils, fats. So you go and basically you clear heat by nourishing the yin, because we say it's false heat. The fire is just rising because there's not enough fluid to contain it, which is like, that's TCM 101. Like I'm being super general here, but so then we come in and we want to cool things. So, it kind of depends on your case. If you're a very dry person, then that's how I would approach it. Like you want to get higher on your fats. Like your macros should be like 50% fat in your diet and come from seeds, ghee, coconut oil, butter, avocado, that kind of stuff to really come in and like warm, nourish, hydrate. Fish oil, 2 to 3 grams of fish oil. If you're more of you're not as dry and you are a little feisty and fiery and maybe a little angry, then it's more mental emotional that we got to clear out any of the stuck energy. Acupuncture is phenomenal for that. So it kind of just depends on the case. But either way, if I saw high BBT in the follicular phase, I mean, I have to really match it with your symptoms. So, but I hope that helps.
Another question is focused on acupuncture, but is there any particular focus at different parts of the cycle that my acupuncture should focus on?
So, I at this point have, I think, 4 acupuncturists on my team, and I never, ever, 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 ever tell them what to do with the patient when it comes to needles, because acupuncture is an art and we all have a 4-year master's level degree in this art. And what we're meant to do is do a very detailed intake, feel pulses, look at tongue, palpate the body, and use our, our intuitive sense and our diagnostics to treat you. So acupuncture is an art, and I trust that, whoever is, like I do kind of trust the practitioners just inherently. Maybe that's a little naive of me, but so the answer is no. I think though you want to make sure your acupuncturist is hitting all those marks where they're feeling your pulse and they're looking at your tongue and they're kind of palpating your abdomen and they're checking in on your symptoms and knowing where you are in your cycle. That's what I would want to see, not necessarily specific points though.
And what are the top 3 things we can share with our acupuncturists when using the app? I'm guessing they're meaning the Oova app.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I would just show, oh, right. Cause they're not seeing the dashboard. Right. So,
well, I guess let me clarify. So if your acupuncturist is an Oova provider, they're getting all of the information that they need to see automatically. So you don't have to worry about it. We take care of all of it for you.
And if they're not an Oova provider, tell them to become one because, right. I'm cutting you off, but
yeah.
like,
no, it's okay.
Cause then it's super helpful. We're going to do a case in a second, so you'll get to see, and then I think you'll get to take more information from it there. But what I care about is like I have said, efficient ovulation. So I want to see a good LH surge. Aimee, you might have something different to say here. I think with the Oova, the highest I'm really seeing is like 60, 70. So what's that, like 50, 60% LH, but I've seen as low as a 20, which is what, 25% LH, and we're getting a good, egg release. And then we want to see progesterone. I want to see progesterone, hitting like above 60% and consistently is really what like I hope to see. Sometimes you'll see these like little drops. I'm not that concerned about that. Like, I think Aimee's talked me off the ledge on that one. So, I just want to see, and the thing too is that what's so great about Oova is like, as clinicians, and you and I have talked about this so many times, Aimee, is like we're trained. Everybody, and even in the lecture today, who's like this doctor I love, respect. You test ovulation 6 to 7 days post. You test progesterone 6 to 7 days post ovulation. That's what we're all taught, and that tells us like, has it reached its peak? Yes, that does give us information for certain, right? And that is important. I want to see it above 15. That makes me feel good. Okay, she's in a healthy luteal phase. But what does she do in the other 13 days of that luteal phase? You know what I mean? And so that's where I love the Oova. And I sometimes have girls actually test a little less like pre-ovulation if we know exactly when they're going to ovulate, and use more tests in that luteal phase, because I care more about that, because that's telling me, is it a healthy environment? Is it like the right, the enough progesterone for implantation to happen and to stick? So I think from that perspective as a clinician, that's what I would care about. And that tells us a lot.
So the question is specifically if the provider is not a Oova provider. So let's say we don't get them on board. Yeah. What are some of the, like, if when you're tracking, because in the app you can track as many things as possible. Yeah. So aside from the hormone measurements, what would you find to be the most useful for the patient to share with you?
Cervical mucus, when you had sex, period, how, the flow, and then any, I guess symptoms around ovulation or after. Sometimes that's a very like a really interesting clue to me of like women feel like flu-like around their ovulation or like a couple days later. And I'm thinking, okay, implantation, something's happening, but the immune system's reacting. Like, so those kinds of things are important. Spotting in the luteal phase too, I think is really important to know about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also really interesting because we're like in the data all the time, and we see that people, like women, have migraines at random times in their cycle, but it's actually not random.
Yeah, it's
There's
not random.
So many symptoms that we kind of shrug, like push under the rug, because we just deal with it, and it's really tied to how your hormones are behaving. So Aimee, thank you so much. I'm going to pause the questions here. We did have a raffle for our Oova users to have a free consult with you. And so Tatiana is actually the winner of that. So Aimee's going to quickly show Tatiana's results and just go through it. And Tatiana, you have the floor to ask any questions that you may have.
So let me share my screen. Sorry.
And guys, this is just like a taste of what the clinicians are able to see if you're working with an Oova provider. and using Uova at home.
Okay, so Tatiana tested in 2 cycles. So we're in her patient ID up here. We have some basics on her. I can't see that. Average cycle length is at 36 days. Is that what it says? And you have PCOS, you have a diagnosed PCOS. So her March to April cycle, right? You went over this with me in the email, Aimee, didn't you? Seems we missed ovulation, right? So here, I'm taking a look and I'm not seeing, and this is LH right here. So this is what we want to see. A good, an LH spike that's shoots up here. Well, we'll see it on the next one. But so I look at this and I think, okay, she's not ovulated yet. Very clear. But let me look at progesterone. Progesterone tends to be low in PCOS girls, but not necessarily here, right? So this is the other thing too that I think is cool that I've learned as a clinician from Oova is that progesterone can be elevated in the follicular phase, and we never knew that before. But again, not high enough. So another thing we're taught is over 3. So like the PROVE test, I'm gonna talk about some of your competition. The PROVE test tests for progesterone over, I think it's a 3 nanograms per milliliter.
I think it's 5.
5? Okay, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, if you did the PROVE test with this progesterone, 6.26, you see that, they would have told her that she's ovulated, right? That's how the test works. If it's a positive over a 5, that indicates ovulation. That is not the case, right? And if I looked at this, maybe before I knew Oova, I might have said the same thing. I might have said, oh yeah, I think she ovulated, but now I'm looking at her LH. She hasn't ovulated yet. We know she has long cycles. She probably started testing a little too early. Yeah, Tatiana, I'd save these. Day 4 is early, but let's look at the next month. And okay, so here, oh, but she does ovulate early. Do you ovulate more than once in a cycle, Tatiana?
No, I don't think so. And this was actually quite a long cycle. It was actually
so you continued on. Got you. Okay.
Right.
So this is day 8 plus like 20. Like, so what cycle day was this then? Like,
oh, I don't remember. I think it may have been like roughly day 50 something.
Yeah. Okay. So that's typical for PCOS, but you ovulated, which is awesome. And did you try?
I did, and it just didn't work out.
Okay.
So I was using the Oova tests during that time to catch my fertile window, and
yeah.
I also did take a couple of OPK tests, and
yeah.
I did get a positive. So I was trying during that time.
Okay. And did you see cervical mucus?
No. So that's one of the issues that I experience. I've been recently trying to be more in tune with my body, and I don't really get a lot of cervical mucus, and I'm not quite sure why. I've been doing a pretty good job lately with my diet and lifestyle. But I know that it's a process and it does take a while to see the changes, which can be a little bit difficult sometimes.
And what about supplements? What supplements are you taking?
I'm taking a prenatal, a multivitamin. I recently started taking NAC and evening primrose oil. I recently stopped my vitamin D3 and my vitamin B12 because my levels were much higher than the normal range. I recently did some blood work. So I'm a little shocked that my vitamin D was actually above the optimal range.
That's not bad though, because D and AMH are, I mean, PCOS, your AMHs are usually very high, but vitamin D plays a significant role in fertility. So that's a good thing that works in your favor. What about fish oil?
I eat a lot of fish, so I don't I don't do a fish oil every morning. I don't really like eggs, so I eat a can of sardines with sauteed vegetables.
Awesome.
So I'm getting a lot of protein, and I
Good.
get a lot of protein from other fish throughout the day.
Okay, so good. And the evening primrose, the only thing I'd say is be careful with that. I feel like it can lead to some estrogen dysregulation after a couple months. I tend to lean more on omega-3s than the plant-based, like the borage or the evening primrose. That's just my own clinical experience. In the lecture I was listening to this morning by a doctor I really like, she was talking about evening primrose oil and using it. But man, like only using it, I think, in the follicular phase, not in the luteal phase. So maybe play around with that too. I think cervical mucus vitamin C and acetylcysteine, like you're taking. And then, yeah, lots of fat in your diet too, which if you're eating a lot of fish, you're probably getting some good fat, but making sure like ghee and, you know, coconut oil, bone broth, I think is really important. And then the other thing I would think about too, so your progesterone looks healthy. So once you ovulate, your progesterone looks, I think, pretty good. You definitely hit some peaks here, 18.24. Like this is kind of what I want to see. You stayed up, let's see how many days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then so you got a period on the 20th of April or no?
23rd. April 23rd.
April 23rd. Okay. So I think it was a good luteal phase once you got it. So you want to think about, I think with PCOS, there's a couple of things that can delay the ovulation. And it's, you know, again, I'm being super general from a Chinese medicine perspective though, but dampness. So accumulation, like it's just like too much fluid. It prevents like efficiency of ovulation. And so, you know, with your diet, like continuing to be consistent with that, I would really watch dairy and gluten and soy by all costs all the time. Minimize your sugar, make sure for PCOS, you want to make sure you're getting enough healthy carbs in there too. Acupuncture, if you can do it, if you feel safe to go back to acupuncture at this point, super duper helpful for you in your follicular phase to get that ovulation to be a little more efficient. I've had girls though that like, you know, PCOS, maybe we shorten the cycle some, but they still ovulate late and they still can create healthy children. So it's like when you catch that window, you still want to do it. But, you know, and exercise, I would think too, that would help you. Movement, meditation, like you're doing all the things, if you will, from a lifestyle perspective?
Yeah, I'm definitely moving my body probably, I would say maybe like 4 times a week, whether that's walking, whether that's yoga, whether that's weightlifting. I did recently do an acupuncture session a couple of weeks ago, and she told me that she thought that I had poor blood circulation, and I think maybe something to do with my liver, and that it looked like I was under a lot of stress, which I agree with because I have a lot of work-related stress. So I think
that'll delay the ovulation. So talking about the safety thing. So you want to think about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I did do a lot of blood work recently. I'm still waiting on my cortisol levels, but I know that my DHEA level is quite high. I haven't received my testosterone, but I'm assuming that that's high. I don't really have any insulin resistance, surprisingly, for being PCOS. So
broccoli sprouts are so good to help your body clear out, I think the excess hormones, if you will. So, I like it, fermented broccoli sprouts, and you can do it in capsule form. Dr. Mercola actually makes a nice one. I would do that. And then the acupuncture, and then you could try some Chinese herbs too. I don't know, is she an herbalist for healthy?
Yeah, she gave me herbs. I don't know what she gave me, but it was something that I drank for over 6 days, 2 12-ounce glasses a day. So I don't know what that did. I haven't noticed a difference yet. I think I'm still in my follicular phase.
You're not testing right now, right? Yeah.
I'm testing just with the OPKs and with my BBT, and I'm seeing a lot of shifts with my BBT. It's constantly going up and down.
That's sawtooth. It's like that's what we say in Chinese medicine is liver qi stagnation. So that is more emotional. And I'm sure it's tough because you're like, when am I going to ovulate? I think, I mean, there's multiple things that are obviously challenging, but like the hardest thing with PCOS is you literally lose months. Like you get 6 tries a year versus, a regular cycle, if you will, where she's getting 12. So I could see where that would be frustrating. And it's not using the cervical mucus, because I wish you could just have cervical mucus be your guide instead of testing constantly. Would be so much easier. Do you get an increase in sex drive at all?
I don't think so. No, not really.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like the high DHEA and testosterone are kind of like suppressing basically estrogen. And so you want to, I think keep working on bath and beauty products being non-toxic. Make sure you do that. I was going to say, like, keep working on the detoxification aspect too. Sweating might be actually really helpful for you too, even though, do you feel like you're dry overall in your body and have vaginal dryness, or is it like you're not dry, but you're just not seeing cervical mucus?
No,
dry skin, hair, nails.
I don't feel dry in my hair. I would say my skin is maybe more on the dry side, and I think I have more vaginal dryness, which is very frustrating. So
try coconut oil too as a lubricant. It's helpful. It's fun. It's fertility friendly. Seeds then too, I would think about like pumpkin seeds or sesame seeds. But it sounds to me like things we say like things aren't getting where they need to get, rather than you being totally deficient, if you will. So the acupuncture could help, doing the herbs. I would just continue diet, lifestyle. I would even do something like castor oil packs could be really helpful to just improve the microcirculation down there. You can even do them over your liver if that's what she senses with your liver. Make sure too, this is an aside, that your prenatal has methylfolate and not folic acid.
It does, yeah.
Good. Okay, so tell me, what other questions do you have for me?
Yeah, I think my biggest concern was the cervical mucus. The BBT, I definitely understand what you were saying earlier, that it kind of drives you crazy because it's the first thing that you do in the morning and it kind of sets the rest of your day. So it definitely adds a lot of unnecessary stress. But at the same time, it's good for me to learn kind of what my body is doing. So just collecting any data at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you haven't seen any changes with the acupuncture yet, I would stay up with it, like at least for this cycle, just to see if it can, again, move ovulation up a little bit and then help circulate things. Because my sense, and I didn't do a full intake on you, is that it's like something's blocked somewhere. When you bleed, is it heavy or painful or clotty or crampy or anything like that?
The last menstrual cycle that I had recently was very painful. It's usually not like that. And prior to that, in February and in March, I had very light bleeding for about a week in each month, which is not common for me.
Yeah, I don't think you ovulated. You see that in PCOS. Sometimes it's anovulatory cycles, which is frustrating.
But usually my menstrual cycles are normal flow and I don't have a lot of cramping.
Okay.
What's interesting is I was also taking the proof tests when I was doing the Oova tests during the part of my cycle when I did ovulate, and all of the proof tests were negative, even though Oova showed that my progesterone had reached a particular point. I did blood work about a week after I ovulated, or 8 days after I ovulated, and I think that was at like 8 point something. So it seemed a little low for being a week out from ovulation.
But it could have been this day right here, day 16, right?
April 15 was when I tested.
Yeah, so look at that. So April 15, so it's the day before, isn't it usually, Aimee? So then it was maybe, the 12.
It depends. Everyone metabolizes at a different rate, but it wouldn't be that same.
It wouldn't be this one.
Moment.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that one.
It would be this one, or maybe, but it's like either way, they show that they're low. Yeah, I think it's still about.
Date. You're right.
Yeah, it's still about continuing to just get the hormones in order. So what else? I think I would add in the broccoli sprouts. I mean, you're eating plenty of fish. Make sure, you know, I think my general rule of thumb is like getting upwards of 80 grams of protein, 6 to 8 servings of vegetables a day, and good quality fat. The veggies are really going to make the biggest difference on you. Making sure you're not going too long between meals, I think is another really important thing, especially for PCOS. Watching the sugar movement. I would do the castor oil packs because I feel like that can help kind of shift things up, and it's really just like improving circulation. Mind abdominal massage could be helpful too. I'm going to make a video soon. Daily I've been doing some gua sha over my lower abdomen and with castor oil. And I think, and then listening to this lecture today, I was thinking about like, it's really helping improve that microcirculation. So that could be something else that could be very helpful to you too, to like, basically like the way we look at it in Chinese medicine too, is open it up. So I think it's something's blocked in the middle, if you will. Digestive issues or anything?
No digestive issues. I do have a gua sha. I don't really know how to use it very well. So any videos would help for sure.
Yeah, I wish I had one here. I know I took it into my room. Yeah, I'll make a video and then Aimee, we can share it, okay? Because I've been meaning to do it anyway. And this lecture today kind of inspired me. But I would say like, it's so easy for me to say, don't get too stressed about it. It's more, and I don't mean that at all because I get it, but you are ovulating. It's about capturing the window. I think you can still get pregnant. Like with the way things look, I think this still does show, okay, you know, she had a good surge and she hit a luteal phase and you had a decent luteal phase. So I think all that works. It's like, it's shifting up and then just kind of regulating everything. So longer time doing what you're doing. I always say to my girls, it's frequency and consistency, you know, and we never know how much someone needs to move. Like I think fertility is very much a spectrum. You're not infertile, you're not broken. It's literally like, okay, you're, you know, subfertile right now, and we just need to move you. And some girls just need to go 2 notches and some need to go 8 for some godforsaken reason. I don't know why, but you know, and so, but all of this, like for you to just start to say, okay, like I want to feel like the healthiest version of myself. And so you're looking at every layer of like your sleep, your emotional state, your movement, your digestion, you know, your sex drive, like how you're feeling in your body. And that's where I do think ample fertility flows from too. So many people do all this just for the baby, and it's like, but also do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the priority right now is to make sure that I'm healthy. I want to understand, because I've had irregular cycles for the longest time, but I never, it was never important enough for me. And unfortunately, even though that was something that I discussed with my doctors, they never really talked about the importance of being regular. So I just thought, okay, whatever, I can continue like this until I decide to have a baby. And now when it's important enough for me to regulate, I just want to understand what's going on with my body. I want to be healthy for myself first, and then, you know, later to be able to have
a baby.
Yeah.
And also too, like another belief in there that I'd love to massage a little bit for you and for everybody is you're not a robot. You don't like a perfect cycle doesn't equal a pregnancy either though. So just know that, like, and you could still have a 50-day cycle and get pregnant. So it's like, remember that, you know what I mean? Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Cause I do also think the constant checking and the monitoring probably adds the stress, then adds a layer of like, it delays the ovulation. So you got to feel that part out of like, okay, maybe this week I'm not going to test, but we're just going to have sex. And you know what I mean? And the Oova could be useful where you're not, you know, and Aimee, I've done this before to Aimee, so she won't get mad. Maybe you don't use the whole kit in one month or one cycle, but you just use it to check, did I ovulate? Is my progesterone above? Like for you, I would definitely say, as long as your progesterone's above, like, you know, what's that? So 40%, 50%, somewhere in there on the Oova side of things, 60%. Then you could rest your heels. Okay, I ovulated. Do you know what I mean? And we covered our bases. So to maybe not BBT, maybe every day, you know, or whatever that is, like see how it works for you guys, your relationship too, but give yourself some breaks here too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think your emotional wellness is the epitome of importance.
Because that's that brain ovarian communication. And so like legit, like it's so important.
Yeah.
And enlist people, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, you have your acupuncturist and maybe there's some support groups you're a part of like, enlist other people who can be trusted sources that you can go to versus you having to figure all the things out for you, because that's exhausting as well. And another full-time job, you know, where it already sounds like your day job gives you enough stress, you know, so it's
For sure.
but, and also like reminding yourself, like, you're safe. My body, you know, can do this. It does do this. I'd like it to do it a little more efficiently. I'd love to make a baby, but I'm safe and I'm doing these things to nourish myself. And I just think that like safety piece and almost like work is work. I'm not unsafe. It's just a stressful environment. Like almost like have that conversation with yourself too. So I think that'll calm the nervous system a little bit.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Aimee. That was incredibly helpful. I know we went a little over, so thank you everyone so much for
Thank you.
hanging in there. If you guys have any further questions, you can feel free to email me and I can translate them over to Aimee. You can send me a note at amy@uva.life. There's a lot of Aimees on this call. I think that's going to be a thing with us, Aimee, going forward. But thank you so much for your time. This is incredibly
Thank you guys.
useful and helpful.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Good luck, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. Have a great night, everyone.